Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me in the next step in starting your business, and that is purchasing a business entity. In this session, we will be discussing 4 different types of businesses. There are more, but because these are the most common ones, these are the ones that I will be discussing today. We will be covering corporations, partnerships, nonprofits, and LLCs. A corporation is defined as an organization or a group of people that act as a single entity. Corporations are generally owned by its shareholders. An example or a couple examples of corporations are large businesses such as Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, or General Motors. A partnership is usually between 2 or more people, and it's really just an agreement made between those people to share the responsibilities of the company, including its profits, its losses, liabilities, and generally, when a partnership is formed, it could be, if it's 2 people, a 50-50 split, or a 30-70 split, or a 40-60 split. Now, there are some risks that do come with partnerships. That's why I would strongly recommend that you make a contractual agreement where both parties sign or all parties sign something that you can go back and refer to, just in case there is any issues in the future or just in case you have to use it as a reference in court. Now, aside from a regular partnership, there is something called an LLP, which is an acronym for Limited Liability Partnership. And this is really just a partnership where some or all of the partners have limited liabilities. Ideally, it's where each partner is not responsible or liable for another partner's negligence or misconduct. An LLP is very similar to an LLC, which I will be discussing shortly. But if you are deciding or thinking about going into business with a family member or a close friend, I would recommend looking into an LLP. A nonprofit business or a nonprofit organization is an organization that has tax exemptions from the IRS. And it has a tax exemption because it has a social cause and it provides a public service. A few examples of nonprofits include the Better Business Bureau, churches, Big Brothers or Big Sisters of America, Boy Scouts of America, and scientific research firms. Next, we have LLC, which is an acronym for Limited Liability Company. And I recommend that if you are just starting up as a company, that you start off with an LLC. Most small businesses start up as LLCs, and it's really where your personal liabilities are protected. There's limited liability access. Limited liability companies come with benefits, and the main benefit is that in the case that your company goes bankrupt or your company has debt, creditors cannot pursue your personal assets. Your personal assets being your house if you own a home, or your saving accounts if you have money in your savings account. They cannot pursue that. This is why I strongly recommend when you start your business, you try to, as soon as possible, open up a business account. You want to keep your business revenues and profits separate from your personal bank account. When you have your company, you want to make sure that you are filing your annual report on a yearly basis. You want to make sure that you are tracking every transaction and making sure that you're doing everything correctly, because in the end, you want to make sure that you're compliant and you're paying taxes as you should. I mentioned an annual report a few moments ago, And along with that annual report, there's an annual LLC fee that you will also have to pay. Now, the next and final thing that we will be discussing in this session is DBA slash fictitious name. Now, a DBA is really just an acronym for doing business as, otherwise known as a fictitious name. And it's really simplified, it's really just a business nickname. Now, you could have your business, let's say you have an LLC, in your name, your first and last name. Let's say your name is John Smith. What you can do is get a fictitious name and have it as Smith Roofing. All right, it's the same company, it's just your company's nickname. Or let's say your LLC is under Sally's Food Service, Inc. You can operate under Sally's Catering if you have a catering service. So there's many things that you could do, and you can have more than one DBA. When I publish my information, it's based off of the state of Florida. I know every state is different. Every fee and cost associated with opening an LLC is different. I am speaking from experience when I say Florida, because I opened up a DBA, and when you open it up, you do have to get an affidavit and have it posted in a newspaper for a certain amount of time. And this is after you file your DBA. There are certain companies that specialize with this. And before I opened up my DBA under my LLC, I did a lot of research because I want to make sure that I'm compliant and I'm following all the rules and regulations that are associated with running a business. Now, when it comes to renewals with a DBA, it's a little different than an LLC. The LLC, of course, requires an annual fee as well as annual renewal. With a DBA in Florida, it's every 5 years. So you only have to renew your fictitious or DBA every 5 years. Now, going back to filing the DBA, just to mention, if you do not publish the DBA correctly, then technically you would be considered not in compliant with the statute. And technically you'd be committing a second-degree misdemeanor. So if in the case that you're operating under a DBA and it's found out that it's not published correctly, then your DBA would be considered void. So just make sure that you are doing your research when you're opening up your business, an LLC, that you are following and doing everything step by step correctly. And that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much for listening and educating yourself on the steps to starting a business. And I will see you next time for step 3.